not to rush.
Live chair.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, tell Paul don't don't rush and don't put himself in danger just to get here. Mistakes happen and everything, so don't worry about that. But yeah, welcome to this strategy scrutiny meeting. Before we commence now, Councillor Porritt, you were just saying this is your last strategy meeting, and I believe are any other members on the board? Is this any last meetings or anything? Is anyone? Councillor Smith, not you. It happens to the best of us. Oh no! Anyone else is? Well, in that case,
I'm afraid, Councillor Robinson, Chair, I have some bad news to tell you. Is that I am not standing
you're
there.
still here, Mike.
Unless I'm voted out, you have me again.
Well, in that case, I just want to obviously before we commence the formal proceedings, I'm really sorry. I really am sorry to see Councillor Porritt and Councillor Smith leaving the council. Indeed, I remember obviously Councillor Porritt. We've been in many scrutiny meetings together. Both, when you were first elected on strategy, I think it was your first ever scrutiny. You've remained here, so it's clear we do a good job on this board. And Councillor Smith, I just want to say, we met quite a while back when I think you were handing in your nomination papers in the council office, and that was a few years ago now. So I really am sorry to see you both going on to pastures anew, and I'm sure that goes, for everyone on the board here. Don't know if anyone else wants to say a few words or. No, it's all. Yeah,
I daren't. I'll get into trouble.
Yeah, well, there's still time, I think, to persuade you all to stay. So I'm sure that's happening. But yeah, so I'm sorry to see you go, but best of luck in the future. And it's been good working with you. Okay, onto the formal agenda. Subs. Do we have any subs or apologies for the meeting?
Yes, Chair. Apologies received from Councillor Sutherland, and substituting is Councillor Kingston.
Perfect. Okay. Well, welcome, Councillor Kingston. Interests? Do any members have any disclosable pecuniary interests about anything on the agenda? No. Okay. Item number 3, the public. Yep, the public are allowed. We are live on YouTube. Number 4, the minutes of the last meeting held on the 8th of February. Do we have any comments on the minutes at all? No. In that case, can I propose them as an accurate record? Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Barnes, all those in favour? Yep, and that's unanimous. Good. Okay. Now, on to item number 5, the workforce strategy. Jackie, welcome. Now Jackie has been struggling with the traffic in Hip Home, but nonetheless, the dedication is evident. Jackie's with us this evening, so thank you, Jackie. I feel your pain as well. I do know the traffic in Hip Home is terrible, so I completely understand the torments of your commute home. Okay, Jackie, so who do you have with you tonight? Is it just yourself?
No, I've got with me 2 fabulous managers from HR and OD, Jane Kirk and Emma Bolton, who will probably talk more than me on this occasion. You'll be sick of hearing my voice at these strategy and performance meetings, but I thought it'd be good for you to hear directly from the 2 managers that are leading the early careers strand that we're calling it, which we're about to launch in the spring, which encompasses the whole thing: the apprenticeships, the interns, national graduate programme, work experience, growing our own, all that great work that's been done has been done by these 2 colleagues. So I think it's only fair that they take credit this evening and speak to what they've done so far. So you know that obviously the last meeting that I came to was the 21st of September, and I included a massive report on what we were doing up to then. And I said, you invited me back to do an update at a future meeting. It's a little bit early, this one, I have to say, because it would be good to come back and do the early careers paper and do a full report rather than a briefing note to you, just to explain exactly where we are with everything that we're doing, and also an update on the workforce strategy, which is now in a draft framework, not complete, not signed off, but once it is, I'd like to share that with you at a future meeting, and maybe invite the chap, Steve James from Solace, who has worked with the council on this with me and other colleagues, CLT members, etc. So, bit of background really. You've got the briefing note in front of you, which is a bit sparse, I'll say, because it's not my usual, because as I say, we're really in the infancy of the early careers launch, and the rest of the detail is in that full report back in September. So in terms of the workforce strategy, as I've just said, we've completed the desktop review now with the relevant data and comments, consultation with various parties, staff, all the different network groups, the employee engagement staffing group as well, and then the stakeholders that we wanted to sort of get a position and an opinion from, should I say, and then co-design the workforce strategy that's in draft framework at the moment, but about to be adopted. And this framework is hopefully going to be fit for the next 5 to 10 years. But there's quite a lot of work in there in terms of how much is to be done and what it includes, because we want to review things like the pay structures, the reward and recognition of staff, all the relevant factors that you would expect to see in a workforce strategy. So, apprenticeship scheme, we had a really good week. I don't know whether Jane or Emma wants to come in at this stage and just talk about the apprenticeship week, what we did, who we worked with, colleagues in comms, etc. The amount of work that you've done in terms of going out and talking to various schools, academies, and Emma's just recently done, and Emma and her team has recently been to an employment fair. So who wants to go first? Anybody?
I'm going to let Jane go first on this one.
No, hey. Welcome, Jane.
She's nervous, isn't
Thank you.
Don't be nervous. It's fine. Jane, go on.
Yeah, I think in terms of certainly the apprenticeship programme, I think we've got a really successful programme within the organisation. So in terms of looking at numbers, certainly at the moment, we have 118 that are currently undertaking apprenticeships. So there we've got 30, which are apprenticeships that have come in on apprenticeship within the council, and we've also got 88 that are existing members of staff. So in terms of using the apprenticeship levy to be able to upskill our current workforce, that's been really successful. We've got a really good even spread, I would say, across all the directorates as well, which again is really positive. So in terms of, I guess, in terms of supporting the early careers agenda, our apprenticeship programme, I would say, is hugely successful. We currently, again, we're not losing levy. We've opened levy transfer as well. We've just had 9 where we've been able to transfer to businesses within the Calderdale area, which again is really, really positive. Early years and one provider, one business that looks at in terms of STEM. So that for me, I think is kind of really positive. We've just had National Apprenticeship Week, which I know Emma's worked a lot on in terms of attending events with her team. So shall I hand over to you, Emma, in terms of just what you've done this week? Thank you. Yeah, no problem. So one of the fantastic things about coming out of COVID is that we've actually been able to get out into the community again and see people and talk to them about the different opportunities that we've got across the organisation. As Jackie said, there's a real focus at the moment on sort of early careers, so apprenticeships, graduates, interns, work experience, and offering those opportunities out, as well as some of our other sort of more manual jobs that we have as well. So things like the transport, the driver attendance, safer, no, they're not called safe, clean,
green space and street scene.
Yeah, that one. So going out and talking to people about those different opportunities. We go to a lot of career events in the schools and colleges, but one of the new things that we've started doing just recently is working with the job centre and going and speaking to participants there. And we've got on the 29th, which I think is 2 weeks today,
On the 29th, we're going and we're doing, it's a combination really of a recruitment fair and also selling the council as a whole really, and talking to people about our recruitment process and how it works and how to apply for a job in the council, because as a rule, we don't accept CVs. And I think sometimes when you're faced with quite a long, lengthy application process, it can be a little bit daunting. So I'm taking one of the managers from transport with me to talk to people there, and I've asked one of the managers from Green Spaces and Street Scene to come with me as well, because I can talk all day about recruitment, but I probably can't talk that much about the actual job and what it involves on a day-to-day basis. So that's going to be really good. And then the only other thing to say really is that I met with the Corporate Equalities Group earlier today, and I've asked them to put me in touch with different community groups across the borough so that we can go out and talk to different community groups and try and encourage more applications from the more diverse communities that we'd love to see some more applications from.
Excellent. In terms of what else did you want us to sort of cover, Chair, our members? Is there anything else that you'd like us to focus on?
Yeah, I think thank you very much. Thank you for that really interesting insight. And obviously, I think Jane, have we heard from you before on this board? Have we?
No, I don't think so. No,
no, first time. And Emma, is it your first time as well?
It is, yes.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Well, you did us proud. So thank you very much for coming. Okay, let's go on to questions then. Thank you for putting your hands up, members. I think the first one was Councillor Barnes.
Yeah, if there's a parapet, my head always is above it. A couple of things on this one. One, it sounds some really good work and sounds really promising, because I think it's not something that's an overnight situation. In terms of when you do go to events or when you go to schools, do you debrief and look at how effective they are afterwards? You see where you're getting the most traction from, in order to perhaps focus or change the mechanism at the next one. Secondly, Emma, I think it was Emma mentioned the fact that the application process is quite long. Is that because of the way the scheme operates, or is that anything to do with the council can amend on that basis? And the third one, I think, is from the report, is work plan to refresh the logo and marketing materials in order to launch a fresh campaign, and just a little bit of background about that, if possible. Yeah.
Okay. Who wants to take? Do you want us to take them in order? Yeah. Who wants to take the first one?
I can take the first one, which was the sort of debrief one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So when we go out to schools, a lot of the time we go and we talk to year 9s and year 10s who have, in the main, not got a clue what they want to do. So it's more about giving them a broader view of the council really as an organisation, because a lot of them would never think about going and working for the council and that kind of thing. So we talk about the sort of breadth of roles that we've got, and a lot of them are fascinated because they don't really know anything about the council. They just think that the school is a council or the library is the council. They don't know about everything else that we do. So it's quite difficult to do a debrief when we go to the schools ones. When we've done the job centre ones in the past, we have seen applications come through from people that have attended the sessions that we've done at the job centre. So that's been really good. And we had one who successfully got one of our apprenticeships last time, and they said that they wouldn't have applied had they not been at that session. So that was a really good news story, sort of thing. The second one, what was the second question? I'm so sorry.
Just before you go to the second one, before you go on to that one. So we also look at, where we can sort of ask them to come into the organisation to take up like takeover days or a day in your shoes, so that they get a bit more of an in-depth view of what's going on and what we do as a council. I had a takeover day student a couple of years, but just before the pandemic actually, and really bright student from Halifax High who actually thought all the council did was empty bins. So Emma's right, they just don't see what we do, and he was absolutely shocked that we do everything but empty the bins. So we do that for us.
Don't go on the waste, please.
No. Okay, I'll move off it very quickly. So you can see where the wider awakening comes in really. And we're going to do, as this as part of this early careers launch, we're going to do more of the work experience, more of the day in your shoes type approach, more of the shadowing, to try and get into our schools really early before they start to think about what they want to do and their options, really, because it could make a difference in terms of some of the jobs that we're struggling to recruit to: engineering, planning, you know the jobs that we're trying to attract more and more people. So trying to go out there and also listen to them to see what they want from an organisation like the council, how we can better attract people like those students.
Yeah, we've definitely had to change that, I think, as well, in terms of work experience offer, because obviously over COVID, the significant change that's happened. So we're trying to take that kind of one day, if you like, that Jackie's been talking about, but kind of expand that. So if somebody has a week, then actually they can do that. They can do different days in different teams. So we're just kind of pulling that together now to try and get that so that we can kind of, I guess, relaunch that. Because one of the challenges about hybrid working is if people aren't in the office space, then people are saying, well, how am I set up? How can we do that? So the traditional people coming in, so we need to look at how we're doing that. But we've got some really good, I think we've had some really good discussions just recently about how we can do that. And it will open the breadth, I think, in terms of what people understand around from the council's offer, which will be good as well. Yeah.
And today's work experience is tomorrow's apprenticeship, is the next day's employee, so we want to build on that and sort of carry on from the grow your own type approach, if you see what I mean. The second question was the application form. Is the application form
process, I think.
Process, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so the application process, funnily enough, it is something that we're looking at the moment as well. So we've had quite a lot of queries from across the organisation and different directorates asking if it would be possible for people to apply through CV rather than just the application process. So it is something that we're looking at currently, but obviously we need to make sure that we do full consultation and do equality impact assessments and things like that about moving to that. The actual application form isn't that long. It's the mechanism that we use for it, really. So it can be quite it can take quite a while to sort of click through all the different screens kind of thing, but it is something that we've had feedback on previously, and it is something that we're looking at the moment.
So just to add on to that, we're just in the process, or we've just re-procured the HR and payroll system, and as part of that, the module that we're looking at for recruitment is going to be a relaunch, a rewrite, probably, isn't it, Emma and Jane? And it's a good time to do that, really, with this feedback. And the other side of it is when we're trying to attract, for example, jobs that don't require people to be able to use the IT function or anything like that. They may not be, sort of competent in terms of applying online and so on. So we need to make it a lot easier. And one of the things that Emma's been doing with Green Space and Street Scene is going out to do sort of like a recruitment campaign to get people to express an interest, and then we hook them in from there. A bit like what we used to do, really, when we had the former manual type approach to applying for jobs. There are some jobs that we've got to go back to that, I'm afraid, because we're not attracting the candidates because they don't want to use the IT systems.
Good. Councillor, I think we've got quite a few members who want to ask questions, which is good. Councillor Parsons-Hulls.
Thank you. What a great piece of work. It's good to see this coming back, Jackie. I'm really excited, especially after the conversation we had last meeting. So I've got a couple of questions. One of them is how does our sort of early careers pathway or stack up against other local authorities? Are we getting the same amount of applicants that other local authorities get? Like, is there a regional situation, or is this a national issue that we've got lots of young people just not applying for things they used to apply for? Can you just give us some idea of the landscape?
Yeah,
good question.
From a HR, is that okay, Chair? Can I answer?
Yeah, good question. Yeah.
From a HRD perspective, we've been sharing information for a little while now, really, and it's become, I suppose, more problematic following the pandemic, where people have got different options and they're choosing those options, I'm afraid. So we can't rest on our laurels, which is why we're doing this early careers launch. I think quite a few West Yorkshire authorities, anyway, are interested in what we're doing for obvious reasons, because they want to sort of bolt onto it. And I'm not against that, but at the same time, we've got to try and grow our own, look after ourselves. But there's quite a few have adopted the grow our own approach from Calderdale, which is really good. And we're working on a number of other things which are a little bit in their infancy at the moment, but where we've all struggled to recruit to certain jobs, the social worker, the planner, we're looking at how we can help each other, because we're all fishing in the same pool, and really we need to join forces with our resources.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that came up in the last meeting, wasn't it?
And
it's an issue across the country. It's really difficult at the moment. So the next question is, as members, so how can we? So I have contact with lots of young people. I had a young person come up to me the other day. She's leaving university. She's like, "Oh, I'm wondering what to do. How would I get into the council anyway? How could I maybe do some work?" I mean, she's leaving university, and I'm like thinking, well, she's studied English or something. And I thought, actually, as a member, I don't think I know what the pathway is. I mean, I'll get and say, look at the job board or something. But what you're just talking about there, about things like a takeover day, or, I mean, even like a simple thing, like she asked me about DBS. She said, well, if I came to do something for the council, would they pay for the DBS? I don't know that sort of thing. So how can we help you as members?
Okay, so when we do the early careers launch, when we come back to do a paper on it, what we'll do is create a pathway that members can link onto and then pass on if they want to. But in the meantime, send it to me and I'll make sure it goes to the relevant officer to pick it up, and we'll look at, we've got loads of people wanting to sort of access our work experience, and it's been a bit difficult because obviously officers have not been in the workplace, and we want to give them a really rich experience because we don't want to lose them. So Jane is working on that with Emma and other colleagues in terms of how we can make that more attractive, I suppose, really.
Yeah, and open as well.
I mean, she's just a person who's leaving university this year, and I just thought she's asking for a job here in a way, and I just think we don't want to
email me. Give her my email address, councillor, and I'll pick it up.
The National Graduate Development Programme as well, isn't there? So in terms of somebody coming out of university, there's things like the National Graduate Development Programme, which we're kind of going into this time. We're hoping to have 5 across the organisation. So, and again, the focus for us for that will be local people. We may not necessarily, but we have asked that it's really, really clear that we are wanting to look locally, because ideally, if we have somebody here for 2 years, in terms of from an investment point of view, but hopefully then they will want to stay and return, and then if we have openings come up, then they can apply for those. So that again, for say somebody coming out of university, as well as, like you said, things like work experience, that kind of thing as well.
That's brilliant, thank you.
Right.
Last
you've had 3 questions, and we've got
how many
quite
vacancies have we got?
a long list. Okay,
so we'll email you, councillor.
Your quick question is, how many vacancies do we have?
Oh, Emma, can you tell from the system now?
I can't tell exactly from the system. I can say that we probably in council jobs, we probably have around 30 to 40 at the moment live on the system. When you actually go onto the jobs board, we also advertise on behalf of schools and other organisations from across the borough. So you'll probably see about 70 to 80, but they're not all in the council.
So the easiest way is to look on the e-call message right at the bottom, and it links you to the jobs, and that's where you'll see all the jobs that are currently available on a weekly basis that are live.
Right.
Perfect. Thank you.
You, Dad.
No, it's all right. Sorry about it. Councillor Carney.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I echo the rest of the things that people have said about how impressive the whole apprenticeship programme is, and the like grow your own thing. Back to the report though, like the first thing that I did when I got to like the second page was like, oh, there's stuff on social media. Let's have a look at that. But I mean, I'm maybe a bit of a dinosaur because I only use Facebook and Twitter, and you're probably aiming at people a lot younger than me. But there was nothing on either of the council's Twitter or Facebook feeds. Like the video of Robin Tuddenham wasn't there. I managed to find it eventually on YouTube, and that, as it stands, it's got 130 views, which I didn't really think was that many, to be fair. So I'd imagine that your position in social media, so like you'll go to the schools, you'll have your open days and all that sort of stuff. and the social media will probably sort of like attract the attention to people that maybe fall through those cracks. But where else is this message from the council going out to the world on social media, if not on Facebook and Twitter? Or maybe I just can find it and it's there and
Would you like me to respond, Chair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Emma, I'd like you to talk about what we've just done recently with LinkedIn, where we're getting a lot of our hits at the moment. So do you want to just talk through what it was and what it is now?
Yeah, of course. So LinkedIn, as you all probably know, is a professional network. It's like Facebook, but for your work, really. So it's for professionals. And what we've recently done is linked up with them to do, it's almost like a headhunting service. So if we post a job on there, we've got one at the moment called an ecological climate officer. And we've posted that onto LinkedIn. And what that does is, as we post it, it searches through all the 80 million members that they've got in LinkedIn and looks for people who've got that kind of job title. And then it pings them a message and says, oh, you've just been matched to a job. And so what we're trying to do is tap into the market of people who are not necessarily actively job hunting, but if you had an email ping into your inbox and say, well, you've been matched to this job, sometimes you might just ignore it, but if you've had a bad day at work, you might click on it and go, oh, what's that? I've had a really bad day, I'm gonna have a look. So we're trying to headhunt out to people and draw them into us as well, which I know LinkedIn isn't necessarily social media in its truest form, but it is something that we're looking to do. The other thing just to add really is that we did some videos recently of two of our people, one of our apprentices who's in health and safety, and another one who started off as an apprentice in health and safety but is now a manager in green spaces and street scene. They should be out there on Twitter and on YouTube as well, and we're looking to increase how many videos we've got of that we can then share across social media as well, explaining a bit more about some of the more diverse roles that we've got in the organisation.
Yeah, go on. Second question, Councillor Carney.
Thank you. Yeah, just a wee bit of a follow-up. I think I'd specifically looked for the video of Robin Tuddenham that it talked about, and I kind of figured that would, because that's specifically about apprenticeship awareness week. So it was kind of that I was looking for, but was that shared anywhere other than YouTube?
I thought it was. I thought it had been shared on Twitter. Yeah, I'll have to have a look, Councillor.
I thought it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Next question. Can we go on to Councillor Smith, please?
Thank you. Yeah, about the apprenticeships, how many have actually resulted in full-time jobs? And also, are they just aimed at young people? Because we had a chat about this earlier today when we were talking about the importance of offering the over 50s a chance to retrain, because they are one of the biggest groups that are now sort of out of work or, not employed fully. So, and the other thing, I suppose we do talk a lot about pay and retention and grow our own. I wonder, what potential is there to pay apprentices a decent living wage? Because I don't know if you do, so sorry if you do, but I know that for young people that choose to do apprenticeships, their families can lose out on all the things like child benefit and other things if they were going to college. So I just wonder about reimbursing them. Yeah, and the other one was just for Emma. When you go out, we talk about having a more diverse workforce. I just wonder, when you go out, do you take a more diverse sort of group with you when you go out? And I imagine you've already thought of that, but thank you.
Would you like me to respond,
Yeah,
Chair?
absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so in terms of apprenticeships, our retention rate up to last year was 97% of apprentices that we retain. They either stay with the organisation and get a full-time role, or they go back to university sometimes. We've had one in HR that decided, actually, I want to have a full-time career in HR, but I want to get further, so I'm going to go back and do a degree. Or they might get a job elsewhere, which, you know, is great. It's still a success story, but we'd like to keep them if we can within our organisation. So generally speaking, we convert jobs into career graded roles that follow on from that. So it might have, so I'll just take an example. I'll use my health and safety one because it's one that's familiar. So we had Lee Broadbent that came in as an apprentice. Very bright student, decided that he didn't want to go to university, didn't get into debt. He wanted to work and, you know, forge a career like some of us did back in the 80s, and stay with the employer and invest in his career with us. And then I introduced a career graded role, and I've done it in quite a few services where, you know, once they get to a certain level, they've got to get a qualification. And if they get to that qualification, they go beyond the bar and then beyond the bar. And now Lee is the joint health and safety manager with Martin Allingham, who is on a phased retirement. So we've grown our own. That's an example. And then obviously he will hopefully fit into that role full time when Martin eventually retires. And we've done it in quite a number of services across the council. And that's the principle. Going back to your second question, which was, is it just open to young people? No, it's not. I think we can give you some evidence of that if you need it. But yeah, we've got apprentices of all ages. We've got in the health and safety team, the second cohort of apprentices that I attracted were mature apprentices, and both of them, one of them got a full-time job within health and safety, and the other one got a full-time job within green space and street scenes. So you can see how it helps them to forge a career with us going forward, and they've both done very, very well. So, you know, and that's not akin to just health and safety HR, it's across the services. That's what we're trying to do. But I would like to get a more secure footing with regard to apprentices coming in, that there's something not guaranteed, but at least a promise of a full-time permanent job. And we pay the living wage allowance, so it's also a decent pay for apprentices coming in. So I think I've got all your questions there, Councillor Smith, but let me know if I haven't.
Yeah, Emma.
I was just going to add, when I was at Kirklees College last week, and I had two teachers come up to me to ask about the apprenticeships and the different opportunities. So it's definitely not just open to young people. And then the other bit was just to say that when we go out, we do have a diverse representation of the organisation. I've got quite a diverse team, which helps, but then we quite often work with Jane's team and with other teams across the organisation when we go out to the different careers fairs and things like that. Thank you, Chair.
No, perfect. Okay, Councillor Kingston.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask about, do you have any degree level apprenticeships, as in undergraduate apprenticeships that support somebody through a degree?
Chair, would you like Jane to answer that one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Jane?
Yeah, so I can't give you the figure, but I can certainly get the figure. But we do support undergraduates. So an example would be the social work degree apprenticeship. So we go out with that every other year. We usually have 4 places that are supported. So 2 that are sponsored, if you like, from children's, and 2 that are sponsored from adults. So yeah, we do support quite a few. We also offer things like level 7 leadership and management. We've had people who have undertaken that, which is postgraduate, but we've done that as well. But I can certainly get the figures and forward those on. Yeah.
We've also done it in planning, haven't we, Emma? Planning and corporate projects and somewhere else. Third one. Yeah.
I just think that might be a very good offer and retaining offer as well. I just know it anecdotally because my own son, he's got 4 A levels and he's looking for an undergraduate apprenticeship, and he's really struggling to find anything locally. So I wasn't appealing for a job for him, by the way. I was just making the point that there's clearly a real scarcity locally of things for someone in that position. Okay, thanks.
Good point. Yeah, really good point. Okay, next on the agenda is Councillor Porritt.
It's my last meeting, Chair. But
I've got a quick question then. So I understand Regarding the workforce strategy, that is that in draft form at the moment, is it?
The framework has been produced and it's going to CLT. Well, it was supposed to be going next week, but we've got what have we got, Jane? Next week, Tuesday, we've got World Social Work Day.
World Social Work Day, yeah, we've got an event going ahead, yeah.
So CLT is going to be a shorter version, and we're going to go to that event to show our support, really, because we have started attracting social workers in the past, but that has changed, and we've got a good success story on that one as well, haven't we, Emma? So it'll go, the framework will go there, and then it'll go and then the next stage I think is cabinet, and then we thought we'd bring it to scrutiny then when it's in
I think that'll be very, because my question is regarding in a year's time, how do we know if we've been successful? I mean, probably it's a year's, actually 3 years probably is a good benchmark, but I mean, it's around how do we actually measure success when it comes to this, and if we want to call them KPIs, however we want to phrase it, how do you think in 3 years time we can look back on this and actually how do we measure if we've been successful when it comes to apprenticeships?
Do you want me to take that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the framework, it's fairly clear. It's quite a big ask, and it's quite a lot of pressure really from a HR and OD perspective in terms of what we've got to produce. But we're on with it. We're on with the early careers and all the rest of it. But it's the retention and attraction rate for me. That's one of my biggest KPIs really. Making sure that we're not losing staff at a higher rate than what would be the average in the industry. We've recruited an awful lot of new staff, 40% in the last couple of years, and that's a massive pressure on the little recruitment. There's only a tiny little recruitment and resourcing team, by the way. We keep saying team like it's a big team, but it's not that big. There's just 5, and that's an awful lot of recruitment campaigns to achieve. So we want to slow that down, keep growing our own, keep maturing the apprenticeships through into fully fledged employment, and making sure that the workforce planning is there in every single area so that we don't end up in a situation where we're having to rely on external support on occasions if we can't recruit. So to me, that's the biggest success, and also that we've got an inclusive, diverse workforce that's reflective of the communities that we serve. That's got to be a big one for me, really. And we've really improved on that, and the figures are going in the right direction. But I've got quite a few KPIs that I've just put forward myself. I put them forward, and they're going into a bit of a framework as part of the overall picture.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think we probably would want to do a bit of scrutiny around that to make sure that in some ways that when it comes to 3 years time, we can actually measure, how we've done in this endeavour. For example, what's our current retention of apprenticeships, for example, versus what we actually want it to be. And I know sometimes you don't want to, not you, but people in general, they don't want tough targets because it's in some ways sets you up to fail. But I am a big fan of actually having something in paper form, something on paper which says this is what we aspire to do when it comes to KPIs.
Do you want me to?
Sorry.
Do you want me to tell you what they are, Mike?
Yeah, is that okay?
Put forward.
Yeah.
So attrition, which I've just talked about, we want a better retention rate. Currently, our turnover is 12.81%. I want it down a bit lower than that, if possible. Absenteeism, our target is 8 days, as you know. It has always been scrutinised at Scrutiny. And when we got, interestingly enough, just pre-pandemic, we'd got down to that, which is a bit sad, really, but COVID pushed the figures up. But I'm doing some benchmarking with other local authorities in the Yorkshire and Humber region, and every single one of theirs has gone up. So they're all asking me what mine are. But we expect it to come down as well. And the home working has definitely helped with managing absenteeism, because the coughs, the colds, the sore throats, etc., are not being passed on when people are in the workplace. So I'm hoping that I can get that back down again. I'm just looking at that. Next week, we've got a meeting. Engagement, around engagement of staff, percentage in that, we've got the highest percentage response this time, and we need to work on some of the the information that staff have put forward of what they would like us to look at, things like, you know, lone working and loneliness, etc., diversity, inclusion, equity, and all the wellbeing things that I'm doing a lot of work on with the team. I've got a wellbeing event. I'm just going to push it 10th of May if any councillors would like to attend, and officers, of course. And that's going to be in the Victoria Hall, and we've got a brilliant guest speaker coming to it. Dr. Tammy Boyce is opening the event again, but we're doing those, usually do them annually on the 10th of October, World Mental Health Day, but this year I'm doing a second one in May because we've not done a face-to-face one for a couple of years, well, 3 years, because of the pandemic. Anything else? What else? Apprenticeships, in terms of growing our own, more apprenticeships, diverse workforce, top 5% of earners in terms of more representative of our underrepresented groups, if you like. And then our gender pay gap is I think we're the lowest in Yorkshire now, we're 1.7%, but I'd like to get it to 0 for obvious reasons. And I think that's about it, really. There's all the recruitment stuff that I've talked about as well, Councillor. Is that
Yeah,
good?
no, that's perfect. Thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing that, because it's a really useful summary, and I think that just allows us and just to measure where we are in the future. So yeah, thank you for that. That's really been really helpful. Councillor Porritt, is that a dreg hand, or is that a...
No, I haven't spoken.
I thought you also I thought you asked a question.
I attempted to dive in, and you beat me to it, Chair, but that's absolutely fine. I realise I'm halfway out the door, so...
No, go on, Councillor Porritt.
Anyway, yes, enough of that. Yes, thank you so much for coming in. As you'll know, as Chair has already referred, I've been on this board for 4 years, and so I've seen Jackie on multiple occasions come in at various stages of various different schemes to try and improve things like workforce strategy in particular. And you'll also know that as Chair of Planning Committee, my sort of major conversations that I have with officers around how things are going in the workforce is with the planning department, and I'm sure they have their own unique pressures, but I'm sure as well they probably represent, you know, some of the wider issues that we're looking at. I know that in the last couple of years they brought in a couple of graduates who have both since moved on to consultancy roles, and it's interesting hearing a lot about retention of people who we have brought on through undergraduate or through apprenticeship schemes. And I'm wondering whether you've got some figures on the sort of relative success rate of bringing in, or retention rate of bringing in a graduate, or bringing in somebody that's earlier in their education, whether it's perhaps more positive for us to, we're talking about growing our own, rather than getting a graduate who's thinking a couple of years there and then I'll go. They've maybe got their eye more on the next set of opportunities than on building something where they are. And I just wondered if you had anything to hand around that.
Good point. Yeah, it is a cost, isn't it? Yeah. Jackie?
Yeah, so I've not got the stats to hand, but it's something we can look at and investigate and provide. But what I would say is that when we grow our own and we invest in our staff, you generally buy that loyalty. People stay with us, and it's definitely something that's happened across the council with many of us. I'm an example of that. You know, it'll be next year 40 years, and I feel extremely loyal to Calderdale, not just because I live here, but because of the investment that they put into me. You know, letting me go to university half a day a week, and then in 2 nights a week I went in my own time. But you know, if you give it, you tend to get it back, and not always, I know, but generally we've got that across the workforce. Paul's another example, was on the call. You've got lots of examples in finance, Paul, haven't you? But we can get you some stats on that. I think really it's just something that we'll start to collect. If we do it already, we'll start to collect it.
Yeah,
definitely.
Perfect. Good. So regarding next steps then, Jackie, so you say that the framework's going to be released a few weeks, you know, for sake of argument, and then we'll have the opportunity to review it in a meeting. Would that be okay with you? If we
I think it's something that perhaps I could bring to a future S&P meeting.
Yeah.
alongside the early careers information, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think that would be appreciated, because I think moving forwards for the council, this is a big area, isn't it? When it comes to workforce, especially when you look at the issues we have in planning, etc. So yeah, is that okay? Could we liaise offline about setting up a date for that? Is that all right?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
fine. Thank you, Chair.
Perfect. But yeah, I want to thank members on this item, but also thank you to Jackie and the team for attending. There's a lot of good stuff which is happening in Calderdale Council. Not least, you've got the events, apprenticeship week, etc. There's a lot going on. So thank you for coming to the panel this evening. I think Emma, and Jane, you say it's your first one, but you've done a really, really good job. So thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Perfect.
You need us
Good.
to stay, or do you want us to?
No, we won't be offended if you leave. So please do, but you're welcome to stay.
Thank you.
Thank
Perfect.
Thank you,
Thank you.
councillors.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Good. On to the next item then. So we've got the capital programme monitoring. Paul, I understood that you hurried away from the town hall.
Yes, it was a bit of a surprise, Chair, to get to the town hall and see there was no meetings on the board. And thankfully, Robin was able to point me in the right direction. But I did speak to Isabel earlier on in the week, and she did say that it was a in-person meeting, but obviously it didn't say that on the calendar. So the mistake is fairly with me, and it just shows that even though I started working for the council in 1978, I'm still learning.
Yeah, no, it's well, it's that's fine. It's, to be honest, it's every meeting I've been in, I think someone attends when it's actually online. So don't worry about that at all, Paul.
Chair, I thought he was going to say he was still an apprentice, but okay.
No, not too long after reorganisation is when I started working for the council. So that is quite a while ago, I think, by any stretch of the imagination.
Perfect. Well, we must be doing something right, Paul, in that case.
Fantastic place to work. And just to pick up on what Jackie said, I've had full support in terms of the training and within the job, allowing to go into college. And it's just been a fantastic experience. And it remains to be that as well. Remains to be that. Are you okay, Chair, if I introduce the item, just say a few words?
Absolutely. Yes, please do. Thank you, Paul. Yeah.
So the report on the agenda today is the Capital Programme Monitor 22, 23 to 24/5 that was presented to Cabinet on the 13th of February. The report outlines the capital programme and the funding profile for the 3 years in question. The current forecast anticipates that the council will spend in the region of 223 million, which I think we'll all agree is a considerable sum. We do know that the programme will change. There are a number of schemes that's yet to go on through the West Yorkshire Combined Authority Assurance Framework, and the schemes that's in the capital programme represent the schemes that are being delivered in the current year. There are a number of schemes that, when they've gone through the assurance framework, will appear in the council's capital programme in future years. So the overall programme will increase significantly in future years. It's expected the council will deliver a number of schemes across the borough in various areas: schools, highway networks improvements. I think the West Yorkshire Transport Plus schemes, everyone's seen the schemes and the signs throughout the borough. Transforming Cities Fund is another large area that the council's delivering. And of course, in recent years, we've got significant funding for the future high streets in Halifax and Elland, and the 2 investment plans for Big Atlas and Tomadin. Other schemes, we've got if people have had a chance to look at the appendix in the report, they'll see the significant funding that we've received in relation to the green home schemes, where we're delivering home insulation improvement schemes, I think in the region of £8 million throughout the borough. We've got the decarbonisation schemes that are aimed specifically in reducing our CO2 emissions. In terms of the programme, it's forecast that 179 million, or 80%, is funded by government by grants. I think that's a significant achievement for everyone. A significant number of the grants now actually come through the West Yorkshire Mayoral Authority. So all the transport fund schemes and the transforming cities, the allocation is given to the West Yorkshire Combined Authority, the mayoral authority, and then we get our share from that. We do get other grants that come direct to the council still. I think deal-up grants around the future high street and the investment plans were all grants that came direct to the council. It's forecast in the current year that we'll spend 61 million, which I think's a fair amount of money. Although it's worth noting that there are a number of factors that'll impact on that. And when we report to Cabinet and Scrutiny panel, probably June, July later in the year, obviously we'll detail how much the council have spent. In terms of funding the programme, you'll see in the report that 80% of it is funded by grants. We've got revenue and reserves. Prudential borrowing obviously pays its part. There's 42 million in there for prudential borrowing. And then the rest of it is funded by pooled resources, which is either the investment fund or revenue fund in the council set aside in a previous year, or capital receipts from the sale of assets. And I think you'll see in the report in Appendix 3 or 2, there's details of the forecast receipts we've got for the next few years. I think what I would, Chair, just in sum to say, I think the challenge for the council continues to be to recruit and retain the relevant professional staff to support the schemes. I think Jackie said in the last item that we've got turnover of 12%, and you think of all the engineers, legal staff, project people that we need to deliver schemes, we really do need to find a way that we can sort of recruit and retain those staff. And I think the issues that we've got are issues that we've got throughout West Yorkshire. So we do think we've got a slight surplus in funding at the minute, but the challenge is to deliver the schemes within existing timescales and approved budgets in future years, Chair. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that colleagues have.
Absolutely. So whilst questions are coming in, Paul, obviously the capital programme is 222 million. How does that compare compared to previous years? You know, is this high? Is this low?
I think I'd say it's more on the high side. If we cast our minds back probably 2 or 3 years, we probably didn't have the transport fund schemes in there. I mean, in the report, it does mention the indicative allocation. I'll say indicative because it's still to be approved, but our indicative allocation is somewhere in the region of £200 million. Now, we've got less schemes on that that's being approved at this stage, but going back 2 or 3 years, if you took out the transport fund scheme, the transforming cities, future high streets, and the investment, I think typically our overall capital programme would be below 100 million over the 3 years. So I think 223 million is quite significantly more than it, and it will be a lot more than that, I would say, in future years, Chair.
It's interesting. I seem to recall a few years reading a report when it said we've got one of the highest capital programs when it was 130 million or something. That was a few years ago. So it's quite interesting that it's going up. Good, and it shows the investment as well, may I add. Councillor Parsons-Hulse.
Thank you, Chair. Wow, there's an awful lot of money coming in, isn't there? It's good.
Correct.
One of my concerns is how, and I know this is happening across West Yorkshire, but one, obviously the inflation situation with projects. Yes. So obviously the time, say, for a tender has gone from, say, what, weeks, months to 24 hours, 48 hours. We surely can't operate like that. What are we doing, or what can be done to assure that we're not going to get ourselves into any tricky situations while we're delivering these projects? Thank you.
I think in terms of procurement, we're obviously bound by government rules, and then the council has its own procedure rules. So there are very strict guidelines around the way that we can tender for contracts, and whether we go around a framework and we can make a direct award, or we have to go out to the market and give the market time to obviously prepare a tender on what are significant schemes. So we're bound by those rules, and to some extent we are open to what the market will do. I think all councils in West Yorkshire are experiencing difficulties in the procurement area, and as you quite rightly pointed out, the longer that the procurement area exercise goes on, potentially the impact that has on cost. We have seen a number of costs that come back in recent years and months, significantly higher than than what was in capital budgets. And I think there's a few examples where we've been back to cabinet and presented the arguments as to where the schemes go forward. I think Mixenden Hub is one that what springs to mind, where we sought approval to sort of continue with the scheme where the cost had gone up. But we have to adhere to the relevant rules, and we are to a large extent open to the market and what the market will produce. The good news that I can report is, you can imagine any one time we have a number of procurement exercises going on. I mean, within the transport fund schemes, there may be 7 or 8 different procurements just to deliver one phase of the scheme. We have seen in recent months that the market is showing signs, showing signs of beginning to stabilise, and perhaps the significant increases we've seen in the last few years, we're just starting to see that come back a bit. But of course, as I've said earlier on, we're open to the market, and COVID's had an impact on the business world and how they tender for work. There may in some areas be less contractors to do the work. All councils are doing similar work. If you think of our transport fund schemes, where we have an indicative budget of 200 million, I think Leeds is over $1 billion. And we are to some extent using the same companies. We're anticipating the same companies will bid for work. So I can't offer you an exact precise answer in terms of what happened on procurement. What we've got to do is make sure we choose the correct procurement route, which we are bound by the rules. Do we go for a design and build contract, or do we go for a fixed price? But that's what officers are there to advise members on, and what are the options, and we're here to choose the correct mechanism.
Can I just ask another question, please, Chair?
Yeah.
So in terms of what you were saying, so the money comes from West Yorkshire Combined Authority, obviously, and all 5 local authorities. How much are you able to work together to get better deals on contracts? So across West Yorkshire, so for example, transport project, for example, covers a couple of districts. Can you work together to get a better price?
We can work together. Well, only to a certain extent. I mean, at the end of the day, whatever procurement route that we choose, we are reliant on the contractors that come back. We're currently in the process of evaluating the tenders for phase 2 of the transport fund, which is the town centre. And ultimately, if only one tender is submitted, regardless of the route we've chosen, the detail of the specification, we could do all of that in the most appropriate manner. And the combined authority, we do work with them very closely. They are very helpful. It's in both our interest to deliver the schemes, but it still comes back to the number of tenderers there are that choose to submit a tender for the work. And
I chair the transport scrutiny for West Yorkshire Combined Authority, so I'm quite aware of the situation, and I just think you're in a really difficult situation, to be honest.
Yeah, if I'm sounding evasive, I don't mean to be, but at the end of the day,
I get it. I understand what you're saying.
I think what we've got to concentrate on is we choose the correct procurement route, and I've mentioned there are different routes like design and build and fixed price, and the specification that we put out there as well, which allows contractors to evaluate the cost of a particular scheme and submit a price that really meets that. But there are a number of challenges within that, and there's no magic one that I've got or anyone else has got that can make the process watertight in terms of the tenders that come back and the cost that's attached to them.
Thanks for that, Paul. Thank you.
The combined authority are very, very helpful. It's in everyone's interest.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting. About prudential borrowing, Paul, I noticed it's increased by 7 million off the top of my head in the report, mainly down to 3 ways, and I'm trying to find it in the report, 3 ways and the social care management system.
Yes.
Obviously the cost of the council of prudential borrowing is increasing given interest rates, etc. What's your views on that, and is there any limit that you forecast on prudential borrowing?
I think I'd be a brave person to say to the panel where we think interest rates will go. I mean, I'm not so sure the Governor of the Bank of England knows exactly where interest rates will go. I think as a council we have obviously a strategy. I think it was reported to Cabinet in January. Obviously it's within our role to anticipate what's going to happen in interest rates, and we don't necessarily go and borrow money when we're going to deliver a scheme. Obviously we have to do that to some extent, but it's within our role really to anticipate the market, and we did receive approval from council some time ago to go and borrow some more money before interest rates increased. I think the most significant increases have been since August, where I think interest rates have gone up from round about 3% to 4.5%. Typically our borrowing chair at the minute is around 4.5%, and that's for borrowing over a 20-year period. The market, the rates are starting to stabilise, but we do go out and borrow, Chair, when we feel it's appropriate to do that. But you've got to balance. You don't want to go and borrow 20 million, then you find out that you don't need to use the money for a 2 or 3 year period. So it is a bit of a balancing act, but we do go and borrow. We have borrowed some money that's anticipated the recent increase in interest rates. But again, with prudential borrowing, there's no magic formula really.
Yeah, it's just an interesting. I just asked the question mainly because obviously the capital account, like we've shown tonight, it's very positive. The pictures are positive. The trouble for the council, I know it's a separate topic, but the trouble is on the revenue side. And I'm very much aware that the cost of prudential borrowing, in terms of the interest costs, repayments, they come from the revenue account, which is usually the one which is very stretched.
That's correct. Yes.
So I was just wondering about the extent to which there is a cap or a foreseeable cap on what we feel like the local authority could sustain. The gearing ratio we call it, but that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I do know in terms of the borrowing the council does. I know £41 million in the programme at the minute. It is obviously a lot of money, and that the revenue attached to that borrowing is in the council's medium-term financial strategy. So the revenue budget is there to meet 42 million. But obviously, what's going to happen in future? We're open to the rates and what may happen in the future. Whether the rates are going to increase is anyone's guess. I think my own personal view is I don't think rates will increase very much. But 2 years ago, interest rates were down as low as 1.2%. So obviously 4.5% at this time is a massive impact. But the revenue funding for the 42 million is contained within the council's budget at this point in time.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thank you very much. Councillor Dacre.
Thank you. So yeah, just on that question, and I think you'll know, Councillor Robinson, that relatively speaking, our borrowing is actually low.
It is.
For a metropolitan authority. So we're in a very good position in that sense. And we also borrow over very long periods of time. And I'm sure that it's something that the Isabel's replacement will no doubt, it's one of the things that they will be taking a view on as to how they feel we can borrow in the future.
Yeah.
And it's a question that's perhaps something that you might want to address to them after they've had time to get to grips with their role.
Yeah, it's a difficult one as well, because I mean, a lot of borrowing, when you're investing to save, you most definitely don't want to, stop that borrowing if it's going to essentially save us money in the long term. So it's a difficult, it's a difficult question. Councillor Carney.
Thank you, Chair. It was just kind of like that. The last few bits of the discussion here sort of prompted me to, this question. So I mean, and the one thing that I noticed in there was like the street light and LED project, and that's still down there as like a potential borrowing cost. So I know that saved us a lot of money. So I'm just sort of wondering if there's other things on there that show up as, you know, a cost and adding up to a total amount of borrowing that, you know, that are in the same bracket where, if, you know, if we hadn't done it, that our outgoings may have been a lot bigger.
Yeah, if I can come in on that one, I think that's a very good point, Councillor. The street lighting scheme, I think in previous reports, we've spent 20 million and we have really delivered what we set out to do with the contract. We are seeing the benefit now of annual savings in energy. I know energy's increased a lot, obviously, but we didn't anticipate the increases that we had in the last year, but we're saving on average now just short of £4 million a year because we've implemented the street lighting scheme. So in terms of a payback, we didn't anticipate that when we did the report 7 or 8 years ago, but essentially the scheme will pay for itself within 5 years. And obviously the other point, of course, is the reduction in CO2 emissions. And in terms of the street lighting, which I think is one of our major successes that needs to be reiterated, is the fact that we got in there quite early on the street lighting. A lot of councils that are coming in now, I know Bradford's delivering a programme probably 3 times the size of ours, but I think the schemes that are being delivered now will be far more expensive than the scheme that we delivered. I know 20 million is an awful lot of money for Calderdale, but I think the market had not anticipated at the time how difficult it would be to go and implement a scheme when you've got 32,000 assets. So I think the big thing for the council with the street lighting is not only the CO2. We've got 4 million a year in energy savings, but I would say that if we'd have gone to do that scheme now, the cost would be between 30 and 40 million. It's an absolute win-win scheme all the way down the line. But to answer your question, Councillor, the £2 million is still in the programme. It doesn't mean that we will spend the 2 million. There are some assets that were not part of the McCann contract that we are looking to do. Obviously, if we do that work, it will be subject to perhaps another report to Cabinet. Obviously, the other scheme in there that is still on pause is the leisure centre. Obviously, there's work being done at the minute to look at options as to what could be delivered. But you've got 2 schemes there that, if they didn't go forward, would collectively reduce the borrowing by nearly £20 million. So you're right in making your point that there are schemes in the programme at the minute that, if they are not delivered, it would reduce the borrowing.
Yeah, Councillor Carney.
I'm on mute, it's not working. Here we go. Unmuted. No, sorry, Mr. Greenwood. I was just wondering if there was anything else in there that is actually saving us money. That you know, they invest the borrowing to do something, and it's there, but we're maybe still paying for it.
Yeah.
Is there anything else like the street lighting that is physically saving us money now? If you know.
Well, there are a number of schemes in the programme. I don't know the exact figure, but I think of the borrowing, it used to be around 20 million of the schemes were aimed at were being achieved by savings in the revenue account. I think some of the CAFM schemes around asset management, asset review, workforce office strategy is another one. All of those schemes, and I think they add up to somewhere in the region of £7 million. They're being paid for not by the council's funding, but from the savings that those schemes have achieved. So all of the CAFM schemes in the report, more or less all of them, are all being funded by savings that's been delivered by the schemes.
Can I just ask, wasn't those 2 properties that we bought for children's homes?
Yeah,
obviously £1 million per child.
Yeah, there's 2 more schemes. I think we bought one of the properties in the last financial year, and I think there's discussions going on around the other property. And again, those are being paid for by the savings from sending children out of district, where we all know what's happened to the fees, and obviously the impact on children going out of the borough as well is another thing that needs to be. So I think between the street lighting, the CAFM schemes, and the schemes you've just mentioned there, Councillor, those are all schemes where they are being met by savings from that's meeting the borrowing costs. So there are examples, and if I'd looked at it in a bit more detail, there'll be a few more in there as well.
I think there's quite a few, isn't there? You know,
Yeah.
like even the making buildings more efficient when it comes to energy. You know, the retrofitting. There's loads of the stuff which which is best to say. Good. Any other questions? No. Brilliant. Well, in that case, Paul, thank you for coming. Really do appreciate your time. It's also interesting as well to hear about your background at the start and how you came to the council. I thought it was a very good introduction. So it's good to have you. Certainly have you here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Perfect. And then also before we get onto the work programme, I want to thank Councillor Dacre. You're welcome to stay, but equally, if you do want to leave, you're welcome to do so.
I think I'll leave you to your work programme.
Oh,
thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. No, bye. Good. Okay then. The work programme. Mike and Ben, any comments?
Just to say, Chair, that if I may, that you wrote to Councillor Dacre after the budget last month, and I think that was circulated to all members, and possibly myself and Ben and yourself need to have a discussion, and Councillor Kearney perhaps, about how we fit the responses to the 5 officer focus groups into the work programme for next year. Two of them, I think 2 of them relate more to Police Scrutiny Board than this board. I think 3 of them relate to this board. So perhaps we could take that bit of work away and make sure that I know that one of them was Jackie's, wasn't it, about the salary and cost rebasing exercise that I don't
like car parking and everything. Yeah,
I don't believe she mentioned that, but we can talk outside the meeting about building those issues into the programme.
I think that's a really good point. Really good point. And also, I think probably, I mean, we can't. The board composition is going to be different. We obviously don't know what position we're going to be in after the election. So obviously, we can't tie the hands of the future board. But yeah, that makes sense, Mike, about having a discussion about the 5 focus groups and how we can feed that in. And then we'll need a future discussion about the how we're going to take things forward next year. There might be the element of, one thing that we did on Place, which I thought was quite good, was themed meetings. That tended to streamline the discussion, so all the items flowed quite well. It could be quite difficult to do that within strategy, but it's an idea. Yeah. Any other comments, members?
I just want to say I've really enjoyed this year being in this committee. Yeah, I've not done strategy and performance, and when I was invited to do it, I just went, it all sounded very daunting, but actually it's just been so interesting. So yeah, thank you.
I'm glad you said that. Go on, Mike.
I think there's no pressure on us next year if we get re-elected in Amanda and put back on this committee. So I think, can we have a diary note to ask Amanda that same question, subject to us all being here this time next year? And if not, then I think we can blame Councillors Porritt and Smith for leaving.
Yeah, I think I might put my name down for this one next year if I get an opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. And
thank you.
There's a lot to chew at, and just an update on the commercialisation workshops. We were going to have it after this session, but for reasons of probably everyone's quite tired after an official meeting. It's been a long day. I've got to get a train home. And all of that. We've decided to postpone that, and we did have a date in the diary for the end of April for an informal workshop with the officers to take us through this visioning program. And the last workshop we did was excellent, so big things planned. But we realised probably having a workshop right next to the election is probably not the best idea. notwithstanding Purda, but also notwithstanding time and everything, it would probably be better to put it after the election. Does everyone agree to that?
Yeah, I've scheduled a planning committee meeting for the 25th of April. I think you're a bunch of lightweights, but no, I agree.
You're just hardcore, Victoria.
Just exactly.
Go out screaming.
Oh yeah, you're not for election. Sorry. Mike.
I think it would have been good, Chair, to have had the second part of the workshop, if you like, quickly after the first one, but that hasn't happened. But having not happened, it's probably a good thing for the new members of the boards to use it as part of their development, both in terms of getting their heads around some of the issues that on commercialisation, also as a bit of team building for a new team.
I think it's a good idea, and I think if we can do, even if you were at the first workshop and you're not on this board, you're still invited, you know, and it would be nice to have that continuity as well of people there. So yeah.
I'll give my apologies now.
Well, you're still welcome, Victoria. You know, we can still have. You know,
what were you saying about lightweight councillors, Councillor Porritt?
I'll be a lightweight ex-councillor by that point.
Yeah, the meetings are open to the public, aren't they?
Well, we can also co-opt. We can't co-opt members onto this board, but if there's any subgroup, we can co-opt people on. So, Victoria, consider yourself co-opted. There we go. Good. Is there anything else, members?
Sorry, I just need to say that isn't quite accurate. What you just said is you can co-opt onto this board, and I'm sure that Councillor Porritt and Councillor Smith would be excellent co-optees for the.
Whoa! I mean, we not in a voting capacity, but absolutely, I think it's a good idea. Victoria and Councillor Smith.
Is co-opting the same as press ganging? Because this is what this is starting to feel.
If the cap fits, wear it, Victoria. If the cap fits, wear it.
Perfect.
Fine.
Good stuff. Well, you know, Victoria and Audrey, thank you for laughs over the past few years. You know, you will be missed, but you know, it turns out we will be seeing you at the next meeting. So good stuff. And on that note, if there's nothing else, thank you very much.
I just want to pass on my thanks actually to all of you.
Yes.
I know I've worked with some of you for a short time, some of you for a long time, and a particular thanks to Mike for sort of steering us on something approaching a straight path for the last 4 years. Your support's been massively appreciated.
For the record, that's Mike.
For the record, I mean, Mike.
Yeah, Mike Barnes has been steering us in the wrong direction. Over to the left.
Well, I can only row one way, Joe. I can only row one way.
I think both Mikes know which Mike I mean.
Oh, dear. In terms of steering, Chair,
are we still? Is this still going out to the public? By the way?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it's funny. Good, Mike. What were you saying, Mike?
I was just saying, in terms of steering, the live feed is still on.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine. You know, you've got to laugh about these things. So, yeah, I second that, Victoria, as well. Good stuff. Anything else?